Alright, so welcome back to Terraforming Mars. Now, I already did an unboxing video for Terraforming Mars, but I wanted to go over most of the cards in a fine detail as well, because there are a lot of project cards in this game, and they add so much variety, and some of the cards are a little harder to understand than others, obviously. So I thought I'd, go over the majority of them. And I wanted to first start with these 6 cards that I have laid out here. Now, these 6 cards here, which I won't even say by name, but you can kind of see them pretty well. These 6 cards, they're only good for one thing: victory points at the end of the game. You play a card, you play one of these cards, one of these 6, and at the end of the game, you will receive victory points for them. Now, a lot of the project cards have victory points on them anyways, but these don't do anything but give you victory points. And they don't give you them when you play them. You'll get them at the end of the game. So they don't even help you play the game. And not only that, but most of these cards have requirements in order to play them. Obviously, they all have a requirement of paying up a certain amount of credits, like 11 credits or 8 credits, or even 2 credits for that matter. But they all have pretty much all of them except one, all have other requirements in order to play. Like this one here, Dust Seals. Max 3 ocean tiles. If there are more than 3 ocean tiles out on the board, then you won't be able to play this, unless you have some sort of special card that says otherwise. But that's something to note. And so these, in my eyes, aren't that fun to play with because, after all, they are just straight up victory points. So I'll just kind of ignore those. And two of the 6 that I mentioned or showed you have this little tag on them, and that is the strategy cards. So if you see one of those little tags, it's the strategy cards. And you use the strategy cards. If you've never played Terraforming Mars before, you probably won't play with the strategy cards. But if you've played it a few times, you probably will use the strategy cards for the game. And so that's something to note. And this is one of those strategy cards. Now, this is actually probably one of my favorites in the game. And it's very cheap. It only costs 5 credits in order to play this project card. And it's called Protected Habitats. Opponents may not remove plant, animal, or microbe. So if you have a card that has microbes sitting on it, or if you have a card that has animals sitting on it, or if your player board has plants involved, so if you have a few plants sitting on your player board, and your opponent uses a card against you, like, for instance, this one here, Deimos Down. Alright? It says, you'll raise the temperature 3 steps and gain 4 steel. And then remove up to 8 plants from any player. So, for instance, if I had Protected Habitats played in front of me, face up, and I had, 5 plants sitting on my player board, and this allows to remove up to 8 plants from any player, he wouldn't be able to remove any of my plants because of this nice little card. Now, this Protected Habitats is one of a kind. There is no other card like it. So if you manage to get this card and you have plants or animals or microbes or all 3 of them or both or whatever, mix and match, you will definitely want to play this to protect yourself from cards that would remove those resources from yourself. So that's something to note. So this one is an awesome card, and it's definitely one of my favorite project cards. Now, it's blue. So when you play a blue card, you'll play it face up in front of you. You will leave it face up, and most blue cards either have an effect or an action on them that you can use. Now, this one doesn't say effect, and it doesn't have action, so that's another thing that makes it unique. This one just says your opponents can't remove these types of resources from anywhere in front of you, which is nice. And then obviously red means event. And so when you play these, after the event is done, you will place it face down in front of you for the rest of the game. And you'll keep them because some of them do give victory points at the end of the game. Or even, you might even lose victory points, obviously. And then obviously the green ones, they will be face up. But the only thing that you will need visible are the tags on the cards for the green. And obviously, if there's a tag on the blue, you're going to want that visible too. But you can't use the tags for requirements on your red cards, obviously. So that's something to note. And obviously, Protected Habitats is an awesome card. So if you're one of the lucky player to end up getting this project card, you better use it, because it's worth it. It's worth your time, for sure. Alright, so, now that we've kind of explained that, I wanted to first start with the project cards that work with tiles. Now, there are special tiles here that work with certain cards, and you'll only use these tiles if you play a certain card. Now, this one here, this is like a mining tile, will work with this card called the Mining Rights. And so you'll play the card, and then you'll get to place this tile down anywhere you want for the Mining Rights, which is really cool. So it says place this tile on an area with steel or titanium placement bonus. Increase that production one step. So on the actual board on Mars itself, you'll place this special tile onto an area with a particular placement bonus of either steel or titanium, and then you'll get to increase the production one step for that card as well. So that's really cool, and it costs 9, and you may use steel as part or all of the currency in order to pay for this card. So that's just one of the cards that works with a particular tile. Then we have the Nuclear Zone, and this one works with this nuclear tile. Oh, and it's got some nice artwork, just so you know, on the other side of the tiles. So that's to make it more interesting with the actual planet. So like this one here has obviously an area that's just been nuked, so that's kind of cool. But this one, you'll get to place, you'll place this tile, and you'll raise the temperature 2 steps. And it's going to decrease your score at the end of the game by 2 points. But it only costs 10 money. And, technically your score is going to go up by 2 anyways because you're raising the temperature. So that's something to note. Alright. Then we have something that's very similar to the last one, but it's not going to decrease your score any. But it is more expensive. 18, this is an event. Lava flows. This will raise the temperature 2 steps, and then you'll place this volcano tile on one of these locations on the player board. Tharsis Tholis, Archaeus Mons, Pavonis Mons, or Arcia Mons. So either one of those locations. And if all of those are covered up, then obviously you won't be able to play this card if all of those areas have been covered up with tiles. So that is another thing to note. Then we have the Mole Hole area. This one's cost is 20, and you can use you can use steel and to pay for this card. And then you'll increase your heat production 4 steps, and then you'll place this on an area reserved for an ocean. So this tile here will go onto an actual area that's reserved for an ocean tile. So that's pretty cool. And there just happens to be enough space to place this on an ocean area. So that's pretty cool. Because there are more than 9 areas you can place an ocean tile. And so they made it just right if you somehow manage to utilize all of the ocean areas reserved for an ocean. So that's pretty interesting. So that tile is just special for that one. This is definitely one of my favorites, though. The Ecological Zone, for a cost of 12, and a requirement for this one is you also have to have a greenery tile out. There has to be 1 greenery tile sitting on Mars somewhere. And it gives you a nice little effect when you play an animal or plant tag, including these two, add an animal to this card. So whenever you play a card that has either or both of these tags on the card, you will get to add a cube, those copper cubes, to this card as an indicator as adding another animal to the card. And this is worth a victory point for every 2 animals on this card. So if you get a few animals on here, this could be worth a few extra points at the end of the game. But then, once again, this one works with that special tile. So this one here, which, you know, looks sort of nice. Definitely looks like an ecological zone of some kind. But, you know, you'll get to place this adjacent to any greenery tile. So it doesn't matter whose greenery tile it is. You can place this near any one. And so you don't have to actually be the player who has the greenery tile on Mars. It can be one of your opponents too. And yeah, so like I said, you'll get to place this. And by placing this, you'll also get to put 2 animals right off the bat onto this card, because it will include these 2 plant tags, these 2 tags as well, including these two. So you'll have, this will already be worth a point at the end of the game, even if you don't manage to play enough to increase that score. So that's a nice card. Definitely one of my favorites, for sure. And then we have Capital. And it works with this one that looks sort of like a city tile, because on the other side it does sort of look like a city, on both sides even. But it's all nice and white, and it works. This tile here works with this one here. And we won't go over it too much, but it has to be placed adjacent. Well, I guess technically you can place it near any of your other tiles, but it's worth victory points for every ocean tile adjacent to this special city tile here. So that's kind of interesting. And so that's another one of the cards that work with a tile. And then we have these as well. Natural Preserve works with this special tile, which is basically like, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know what we would call this tile, but this tile cannot be placed next to another adjacent tile. So if you place this tile, it can't be touching another tile when it's been placed. Other tiles can be placed next to it later on in the game, but when you're placing this special tile here with this particular card, Natural Preserve, no other tile can be touching it. And that's the placement rules for this particular tile, which works with this particular card. And we'll get back to you guys in the next video.